Welcome to episode 124 of Gun Guy Radio. This is the podcast that shines a positive light on the firearms lifestyle. I am your host, Nick, from the Practically Tactical Show, subbing in for Jake. And this is your weekly dose of positive firearms talk without the politics. I am joined by Ebbs from House of Guns. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the status of the gun industry. And I have him on because the firearms industry runs strong in this one, in his blood. So thanks for coming on, man.
Glad to be here again, buddy.
Yes, thanks for coming on. If you guys haven't heard of Ebbs from House of Guns, check him out on YouTube, Haus of Guns, right?
That's right, hausofguns.com.
All right, check him out on YouTube as well. Also, he was just on the latest episode of This Week in Guns that I also co-hosted, so check that out. A couple announcements before we get to the show. We're still looking for some gun and gear reviewers, bloggers, and editors at the Firearms Insider. There's a lot more reviews on gear coming up on there. So if you're listening and you have some gear or a gun you want to do a review on, go check it out. Also, you guys can contribute to the show by shopping at Amazon via our affiliate banner. So go to our website and just click on Amazon and go there and shop, and we get part of that. So it really helps out Firearms Radio Network. So let's get to the main topic, which is status of the gun industry. Obviously, we went through this whole gunmageddon, if that's the right term for it. But before we kind of look at where we're at now, you know, Ebbs, when you kind of look back at this whole crazy crunch thing, and I kind of walked into it kind of in the middle of it, not necessarily the beginning of it, you know, as a gun guy and, you know, gear reviewer and gun reviewer, you know, and just as a normal guy that likes to shoot, what was it like going through this?
Well, you know, what we experienced last year was kind of a mirror image to the 2008 election, because the exact same happened 5 years before, when, I guess it was 4 years before, if you count correctly on the calendar, when it was apparent that our current president was going to be our next president. And so you started to see stores reflect that fear, and as a result, people picked up on it. And then, you know, I know a lot of folks are really sensitive about the term panic, but I'm just going to use it because it's familiar, not because I'm picking on anyone. I know a lot of people feel like if they go out and they buy ammo and they stock up and they're cared for and their loved ones are cared for, and that's the way they're looking at it. They're like, well, I'm prepared. I wasn't part of the panic. Okay, that's fine. If you need to look at it that way, that's okay. But the quantity of firearms and ammo that was being purchased compared to what was typically being bought, and then so the quantity, the volume, and the frequency all just absolutely skyrocketed. So it was reflected in the shops, that it was reflected in the buyer, and then people who weren't previously shooters, they started going out and they started getting in on the action too, because they think, well, I've always kind of wanted to shoot, and I've never gotten into it. Maybe now I need to do it before this stuff gets banned for good. Because what happened in 1994, in the 10-year ban, the Clinton ban, so to speak, you know, I was much younger then, but I can remember the people who felt like, yay, it's okay, I already got all of my stuff pre-banned, so I'm sitting on a crap load of magazines and my guns, where I can put whatever I want on the muzzle, and it's not affected. So it's affecting everything coming out after. Well, everybody kind of had that same mentality. I'm going to get what I can before he comes into office. It was funny because it was like that panic, again, I'm using the word for convenience purposes, but it was like that panic just superseded all boundaries in the firearms world. And really, you know, when in December of 2012, when the tragedy happened at the cowardly tragedy happened at Sandy Hook Elementary School, you know, all that was just ammunition in people's guns, so to speak, for what we felt like we knew was coming anyway. And like we frequently see politicians do, they stood on the bodies of the dead. I know it's a cliche, but that's what happened immediately after all these pushes came through. We had the Aurora shooting here in Colorado, where a psychopathic coward marched into a movie theater and started attempting to mow people down. He was extremely ineffective because he didn't know what he was doing, but a lot of people got hurt and a lot of people died, and it affected us here in Colorado, especially too with something as simple as a plastic device such as this. You'll notice I'm holding up a Gen 2 PMAG for safety reasons for my own self. But in 2012, overlapping into 2013 last year, you and I have friends that we know, we've heard them say, we have not experienced any type of firearms purchasing like what went on in the year 2013. No one's ever seen it. We probably won't ever see it again. But we saw for a period of depending on where you were in the country, a standard M4 carbine type rifle, regardless of the manufacturer. Forget it's not Daniel Defense. Maybe it's a Double Star. That went from being a $500 gun overnight to being a $2,500 gun. And people were finding ways to get cash if they didn't have credit cards, or people were going to the store and they were maxing out credit cards because they knew, based on what our leaders in office said, they thought it was a good time to do away with this stuff. And so because of the fear of what had happened in our country and what was going on in the news, it seemed imminent. Now, God bless our gun lobbyists. You won't hear me say bless a lobbyist very often of any kind. But we struck that garbage down big time. But we were so far set back with ammo. I mean, is it still easy? Can you find 22 long rifle ammo?
Every once in a while.
I mean, we can't, unless you're one of the if you're an old guy and you watch this show, we all become old eventually. There's a lot of retired guys at our local Walmart, Sportsman's Warehouse, Jack's, our outdoor stores, Cabela's. They know when the trucks get there. They don't have jobs to be at. And so these are the guys you run into there that brag about having 30,000 rounds of 22 long rifle, to which I don't understand the bragging about that. Rimfire stuff is there to be shot. It is garbage. I mean, It's low recoiling. It's fun. It teaches good marksmanship, and it used to be inexpensive. But, so why are you bragging about having 30,000 rounds of 22 rimfire in your basement? I mean, I don't care, for one, and two, you're an idiot.
It also really hurts those, for me, that's my kids, for taking
Right.
my kids shooting.
Totally.
And it makes it hard.
Right.
We pretty much stopped shooting because I got down to 1,000 rounds of 22, and I mean, we'll blow through more than that in a day out at the range, And I just so happens a couple weeks ago, I walked into Walmart just to buy some, I think 9mm, and they had Federal of the 550 packs in. So, and I can only buy 3 boxes of ammo. I was like, well, I'll buy 3 of the 22s just so I can take my kids shooting. It's brutal.
Yeah, and it's funny is my daughters have been around firearms, and I believe that education eliminates curiosity. So if the child is exposed to it, taught correctly, before going hot, so to speak, they learn to handle them with respect. They understand that they are dangerous tools to be treated with great care, and they become not only great marksmen but great advocates of the gun world. And my oldest is a perfect example of that. She's going to be 8 years old tomorrow, and she's been shooting with me since she was 4 years old. The funny thing is that here I have a CMMG 22 long rifle AR conversion kit with a couple of Black Dog magazines that works outstanding in every AR I've ever chosen it in. It's just a drop-in replacement for the bolt carrier group. But I had intended for her to learn how to use the controls on an AR-15 with that drop-in 22 long rifle conversion. And because what little we have left is so precious, no, we have it back ordered through my FFL shop, and I mean, we're waiting on it. But because our supply of 22 long rifle gets shot, now I'm down to the last. I'm not even gonna tell you guys, but I thought it would be easier for her and cheaper to learn to shoot one of my ARs with 5.56 in it with full power and stuff. I mean, I thought if she's not cared, in fact, you can go to my YouTube channel and see her blasting away. It says 7-year-old shoots AR for the first time. I think something like that maybe. And it shows my daughter, then 7, sitting down on the bench behind an AR-15 rifle. I'm walking her through it. She's learning to work the safety herself. Now her hands aren't big enough to use her thumb on the safety. She's got one hand running that, the other hand on the grip, or actually wrapped around so she can actually reach the trigger. But yeah, man, I mean, anyway, all that to say, because of how insane those first few months were that spilled over into the rest of the year, we're still catching up. Now, if you'll notice, a lot of 9mm and a lot of 5.56 has caught up. There are stores that do still have limits on it, like Walmart, like you mentioned. Now, at like our Cabela's, couple small places in town still have their prices a little high, but at the current market price, it's like Cabela's can't give it away. They've got so much. I mean, whether it's American Eagle brand brass cased or the steel case stuff, you know, at $7.99 a box for steel case or $6.99 a box for steel case, you and I can remember picking up steel case 223 for $3.99 or $4.99 a box. And so we're going, okay, they're sitting on this much of it now. I'm not buying it until it goes down, and I know that it's going to go down because it has to.
Yep, exactly.
You know? So anyway.
Well, and here's the thing too: is this is probably going to happen again sometime in the near future? Do you think?
Well, you know, naturally, here we've had a series of, you know, a rash or an outbreak of unstable people who weren't loved enough, or the people in their immediate circles didn't give them enough attention that they thought they deserved, and so one or a couple freak out and decide to go on a mass killing spree, and a gun happens to be one of the tools that they used, and then several others follow behind because the media is out not to report the news but to make money for the agencies that they represent, and so they're going to report on the hottest thing, and because we as humans feed on gossip and negativity, we are going to flock towards that, and as a result, these people are sensationalized, glamorized, become celebrities, and now the new celebrities give way to other new celebrities, whose names, by the way, I don't even believe we should mention, which is why I do not. And as a result, the president came out this past week and said, I think it's time we go the route of Australia. Yep. And eliminate all. Now, forget. Now, they're putting guns in a pile and incinerating them and burning them and going door to door. Forget the fact that their violent crime rate is up. Forget the fact that violent crimes are way, 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 way up. You know, let's go the way of Australia and eliminate all semi-automatic weapons. So it's going to happen again. They're going to come forward again. Now, I think because of the magnitude of this last panic, I think it might be different. I think what we see might be different, possibly. And I don't know exactly what that is. I don't really have a crystal ball as far as that goes. It could be exactly the same. It could be people, you know, more first timers. It could be just that there's already a surplus now of firearms built up because it's hard to move any type of modern sporting rifle in the configuration they are until that happens, and so then, hey, it's all happening again, but now we're all stocked up and now all the factories are running, and so maybe we have an even bigger year than we did in 2013, if that's possible.
Well, I hope there's just a run on 40 for some reason. Get a run on 40 and I don't care about that.
I'm holding one right here, see?
But let's move on here, kind of catching up now from what we went through to now. You know, when we take a look at firearms companies, obviously you kind of talked about modern sporting rifles. You know, there's definitely a surplus of them on the market of that. And you look at companies, for example, like Freedom Group started snatching up all these companies. You know, is Freedom Group killing themselves now? They picked up all these companies kind of during the rush, and obviously it's on the downside now. So, Freedom Group and any other companies about that were grabbing stuff up, or where do you think they're sitting at right now?
Well, I mean, if you believe the mass emails that you get that talk about George Soros' attempt to take over the entire world and to do so through the Freedom Group, then I would say yes, they're trying to kill everything. Anytime a conglomerate pick something up, their idea is to centralize and mainstream and try to get everything within arm's reach, so to speak. And so it's a natural and a macro management mindset too. It's a natural progression for a company to want to say, okay, you belong to us now, so you need to come over here where we are. You know, I bought this has been probably late 2008. I bought a Remington R15. It was a 223, like a varmint style AR-15 rifle. Tack driver, fantastic gun, 22-inch barrel, but it was fluted, so it wasn't overly heavy. Just kind of a knurled free float 4N rifle stock. I put an ergo grip on it and a Nikon scope. Didn't have to do anything to it. It was 3/4 MOA all day at 1 and 200 yards. Love that rifle. Now it had the name Remington on it, but Freedom Group had already bought Bushmaster, and this rifle, though it had the Remington name, was actually being built at Bushmaster. So this was a Bushmaster rifle at the time, before the promises that Freedom Group made to Dick Dyke of Bushmaster ran out, and they decided to take everything to Ilion, New York, at which point things bearing the Bushmaster name now were made by Remington. And it wasn't a couple years went by, and my dad saw mine. He thought it was a great rifle. I was smacking coyotes and prairie dogs left and right with it. He said, I think I need one of those. Mine was made in Windham, Maine. My R15 was made in Windham, Maine, by people who had been building AR-15 rifles for 30 years. Okay, his Remington, same name, was made in Ilion, New York. If I'm mispronouncing Ilion or Ilion or however the great people of New York, some great people of New York say it, I apologize for that. But his rifle was made in New York and was awful. I mean, it wasn't even the Hydra dip on it, which was like a, I don't know, like a Max 4, kind of a sage camo, had full like spots where it was incomplete. The headspace was way off from the bolt, meaning the chamber. It couldn't hold a 2-inch group even at 100 yards, and we use hand loads. I mean, we're not just throwing surplus ammo into these. These are like a 50 or 52 grain Hornady VMAX that are getting about 3,200 feet a second, and they're accurate. And I had the rifle to prove it. But here you have a rifle from Windham, Maine, from people who have been doing it for a long time, and then you have the gun from Ilion, New York, after Remington has said, okay, Bushmaster, you're coming with us. Quality changes, and then eventually do people start voting with their pocketbooks? I like to think so. That's free market economy at its best. That system says, okay, if your product sucks, word will get out, and people will stop buying it. And so now I sold mine at some point a couple years ago because I needed the money. Now I regret it, but I did. And Dad, I think, tried to go through a warranty thing with them, and it was just such a disaster. He gave up on it too. So I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about Freedom Group anyway, whether it be Marlin and the quality of their production lever action guns and the AAC situation and even the conflict there between former employees and how everything went down. Everybody's got their own side of the story, but I think this is just something naturally that happens when you have a large sort of, like, you have Hydra, many heads buying up the one that was special as an individual. Maybe there's circumstances that go into it. Most of the time the circumstance is money. And when that happens, I just think it's typical to see a quality decline. I don't think that's necessarily always the case, but if we're talking about Freedom Group, it seems pretty commonplace just to decide that's what it is.
Yeah, and you kind of hit on the next thing I was going to talk about here is we have all these companies moving. So Remington is consolidating, and then aren't they opening up a new place in Alabama?
Yeah, that's right.
Then we have Carr moving. Then obviously Glock has now started production in Georgia. I know there's a couple more people moving that I can't think off the top of my head. And you kind of hit on it too. And it's kind of bad to say, but as consumers, should we expect a drop off in quality? Do you think?
Well, and do new products start out with a lesser quality than new products did before? I mean, I didn't get to shoot. They didn't have them at range day when Remington introduced their R51, the remake on the original. But I stood in their booth and I talked with one of the developers, and it was one of my most viewed videos from SHOT Show. And I have to say, I thought it felt pretty good. You know, you hold it in the hand and you say, well, this has a slimness, maybe like a Walther PPS, and the trigger feels more like a crisp single stage. And, you know, takedown was a little interesting, but I thought, man, Remington, kudos to you guys for still coming out with new stuff. Now, I haven't fired one. They haven't sent one to me. I haven't asked for one. But every single one that I've seen or heard about from people in the industry that I trust and media personalities that I know personally and trust. And I don't mean like hunting show know and trust, like, hey, this is my good buddy over here who's one of my sponsors and gives me free stuff. I mean actual friends who've handled this gun that it is just an absolute freak show. It's terrible. You know, and you have to wonder, you know, eventually, do people just do people say, well, it's new and hot, so I have to have it, so I'm going to buy it no matter what the quality is? Is that a new American mindset, sort of, maybe, or do we actually demand more quality? You know, like we demand of American-made cars that, you know, we say, okay, it's time to stop building these so that they will break at a certain point, or a certain part will break at a certain part, so we have to get it fixed. Start building this like I never have to fix it. You know, that's the attitude I have. But I don't know that everybody has that attitude. They just say, well, it's a mechanical thing and it will break eventually, whether it's 2 weeks or 20 years.
Well, hopefully people go with a more, I mean, especially with the firearms, I don't think we want to start cutting quality for, you know, getting it out. And that might be learned in the perfect example of the R51.
Sure.
You know, I think we need to stick on the quality aspect instead of cutting corners. But let's move on to kind of our next ammo section, which we kind of hit on a little bit before. And most of us are hoping that the ammo bubble burst is coming. We talked about it on This Week in Guns. But I hope that's coming, and hopefully we will get 22 long rifle back in stock at a good flow. And I get this question all the time on YouTube and during the show, and I'm sure you get it too, is where is all the 22? Do you have an answer for that?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think we've gotten past the point where either people are, okay, I apologize for the word panic, and I have to apologize for the word hoarding, but is there just such almost like a depression era mindset now of, well, this is not going to be made forever, so we have to continue storing it, and don't shoot any of it. You know, it's like canned meat. It's never going to go bad. I had a buddy who just got a Thunder Beast all titanium suppressor and put her on his Volquartz and Custom 1022, which was formerly mine, and we shot some like 40-year-old Western brand 22 long rifle rimfire stuff, and I thought, there's no way this will fire. It fed through that thing like a top. I mean, this stuff lasts forever. But honestly, I mean, it's being made as fast as it can be made. You know, the back order, like ATK, the main company that produces for Federal and some others, and you know, they say, well, the back order isn't as long as we originally anticipated it would be, but we're still filling orders and still getting out as fast as we can go. I don't think there's some type of conspiracy where it's actually not being made, and you know, we're all just waiting for it like idiots, and it's never going to come in. You know, people that already have their tinfoil hats on will say, well, that's one thing you are wrong about. Well, maybe I am. But the firearms industry is too big and makes too much money for a lot of people, even who don't care about guns but do care about money, to just stop making 22 long rifle overnight. I mean, you're talking about Appleseed programs. You're talking about FFA and Boy Scouts, and you know, all of these programs who shoot gads of 22 outside of just regular Joes like you and me who want to teach our kids to shoot with it, or you know, like to shoot a suppressed because it's super quiet and forces me to work on my trigger discipline and things like that. So I mean, I wish I could say, yeah, it's here, you need to go here. One thing that I am seeing, and this could be totally illogical, but in my mind it makes sense. One thing that I feel like I am seeing as I watch social media and people that I know on the East Coast and Eastern Midwest areas is that it seems like they're getting 22 long rifle in stock more frequently over there, and it's kind of starting to creep west towards us. You know, when we were waiting on ammo in 2013, trying to get even the centerfire stuff in, it seemed like before we would get it and then run out again, the places back east of us would they would have it sitting on the shelf and just nobody had gone in and bought it. Obviously, maybe there are some areas that have a higher volume per capita of shooters than other areas do, but I could buy 9mm all day. I could buy 40 all day. I can even get a lot of 45. Not as much, but the 5.56 and the 7.62 by 39 is, you know, we then even with the AK ammo, we're like, where is this? But now it's just everywhere, over the counter, no limit for us.
Yeah. Well, and someone need to point out too, and there's a video of it on YouTube if you look it up. CCI in my home state of Idaho, Lewiston, Idaho, before the crunch, and before probably ramping up stuff they were pumping out, I think, 1.4 million rounds per day, and that's just one company in one location pumping out 1.4 million rounds per day, or 1.2, or there's a video on it. It actually explains how they make 22 long rifle, which is actually a pretty complex process for a simple little bullet. So I can't even imagine the amounts of 22 that is just being cranked out right now.
Well, and if you have, you know, we talked about volume before and stuff in terms of demand, but if you have stores that have the buying power of a Cabela's, of a Bass Pro Shops, something like that, that can order with those account sizes, their back orders are far bigger than everywhere else. Now, I know they say, you know, the distributors will say, we'll try and throw a bone to the smaller stores, the smaller buyers when we can. But the fact of the matter is, because that's where most of their money is coming from, they're going to fill those orders to those bigger places first. And they're going to do it in large quantities. It's probably not going to be all at once, but it is out there and it is coming. It's just a matter of how deep that debt of ammo went last year when everybody was trying to get it and couldn't. That is resulting in the wait times and the absence on a lot of shelves that we have now. Same way with a lot of powder for you reloaders, hand loaders. You guys will know that a lot of powder, most desirable powers, a lot of times the Varget and the IMRs and Hodgson, and even we shoot a lot of Western powder, which is like Ramshot brand that has tack and zip, which is a handgun round. You know, we're still trying to get powder too, and bullet tips, because so many bullet tips are going into the production stuff. So it's not just the 22 long rifle that's hard to find. I will tell people, you know, if you like to buy local, please do that. I think that's fantastic, and it's extremely admirable. If you're not afraid of using Google and doing a little bit of searching, you can find just about everything. And one aggregate site that I really like to use is gunbot.net, gunbot.net, and you can basically choose the round that you want to search for, and and then find it, where it's in stock, and how much it costs, and how much it costs per round, even, which is, you know, it's like the price per unit thing that you see at grocery stores and the little price tag under stuff. It's the same kind of thing, and you can click on that, go buy it right from there, and you can do it in bulk. You can do it, usually the price per round is cheaper, obviously, if you're willing to buy in bulk rather than just one box of 20 or 50, but you got to be willing to pay for it. So it's out there. It's available to be found. It seems like a lot of those chunks of ammo are finding their ways into nooks and cranny, even across the internet too, that maybe not a lot of people actually know about just yet.
Yeah, and kind of sticking with the ammo thing too, and this might be definitely your forte, is, man, nowadays I see a new type of round every single day, and it seems like if you're cool with different ammo, you're definitely in the 6mm stuff. That seems to be where everything is popping. You know, is this stuff, you know, is this really like innovation in the different types of calibers, or are people just getting bored and coming up with weird stuff?
Well, a lot of it can be rebranding of old ideas too. You know, I mean, before things went production or were bought up by big name ammo manufacturers, especially in the old days, Western was one, Winchester. Remington, you would hear of wildcatters. You would hear of guys who had the know-how to maybe tweak the chamber of their rifle or even handgun just a little bit, and be able to squeeze a little bit more out of that casing, a little bit more out of that cartridge. And then eventually, sometimes, and a lot of times, the manufacturer of such things will say, you know what, there's good money in that. Let's pick that up, and let's turn it into a production caliber. And so the wildcatting seems to have become more popular in the eyes of the actual ammo manufacturers now. They say, well, we've taken this and we made it better. You want to take a common one that is way mainstream now would be like the 17 HMR. The .17 Hornady Magnum rimfire is based almost entirely off of the 22 WMR, which is a 22 mag or 22 Magnum Winchester Magnum rimfire, just neck down. So you took a straight wall cartridge and you turn it into a bottleneck cartridge, and you go from a round that would get 1,800 feet a second with a 30 grain or 36 grain 22 caliber tip to the 17, which is just like, it's like a little grain of rice, you know. I mean, it's so small, but you can get 2,500 feet a second out of it. So you're upping your speed by half again as much, and it's hot, new, and exciting. And then Hornady did the same thing with the 17 Mach 2. It's a 17 caliber 22 long rifle, but it's rimfire. I love rimfire stuff. I think it's awesome. Or one of my personal favorites is a 204 Ruger. That was another Hornady plus Ruger project where it's a 20 caliber 222 Remington Magnum. You would think the 222 mag is an awful lot like a 223, but not quite. It's a 20 cal, so you have something called sectional density. And one thing that I love about that is you have about the same length or a little bit longer, but it's narrower. So think of like a spike driving into a railroad track, and then the hammer, instead of having a big hammer that would be easy to hit that narrow spike with, you have a narrow hammer with a long head that's just flat, and so there's a lot of force packed into a little area. It's kind of like the modern bow and arrow principle, you know, where the arrow is narrow, but there's a lot coming right behind it. And so that 20 cal is a lot like that. You mentioned 6 millimeters, particularly the 6.5 by 55 Swede is one of my all-time favorite rounds, and it is out there in great quantity and availability even. But it has that 6.5. Which would also be like a 257 caliber. Make sure I got that right. Yeah, 257. A 6 millimeter would be like a 243 Winchester. But that 6.5 is awesome for taking game and accuracy and bucking the wind. You know, that skinny cartridge, but with a lot of push behind it. It's good stuff. So I think part of it is people getting bored because so much of that tweaking now has been picked up by the manufacturers and even rifle makers saying, well, we need a cartridge that will do this, okay, and fill in the blank. We actually already have that, but because they have the novelty of an idea of a new rifle or a new handgun, they say, well, we need a new round to go with it. So we get things like the 50 Beowulf or the 458 SOCOM. You get a 458 SOCOM that basically treats a standard capacity 30 cal or a 30 count 5.56 magazine as a 10 round 45 cal magazine that is a rimless cartridge and will auto feed in an AR platform. You go, oh my gosh, this is so innovative. Why didn't we think of this before? 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, all of these different ones that basically scratch someone itch to say, hey, we have this, when in reality we already did have something that would do most things that would do. We just want to be able to say that this car, we want to be able to say that the 500 Smith, I think I have one. Oh, I do have one right here. These things are so cool. If you've never seen a 500 Smith & Wesson up close, here's a 500 Smith next to a 40 Smith & Wesson.
Jeez. Dwarfs.
It's just it's terrifying. But you know, we also have advances in modern technology and propellants. Our bullets expand better, they fly faster. Our we don't have our pressure, chamber pressure, so to speak, isn't as wasted. I think because things have gotten so widespread and the industry has gotten so much bigger, from what I read anyway. If you read books by guys like Jeff Cooper and P.O. Ackley and those guys, it seems like overall we've gotten a little bit dumber. That's probably the internet's fault. But it makes the demand easier, and it makes it easier to say, well, I want something that will do this. So some of it could be boredom. Most of it's money and people who have great stars or dollar signs in their eyes for a specific gun or some grand task, whether it's killing a Cape buffalo in Africa with a handgun or killing a member of the Taliban, even if you miss. Because if you send a 50 BMG down close enough, or for instance, the 416 Barrett is another good example of that. If it gets close enough to him, it might at least rip off an arm. So,
well, then, so in other words, the best answer is it's just fun sometimes.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look at the 300
let's move on here
Blackout.
to some rifles. We're going to break that up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Let's stay on track. I got plenty to say.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to some rifles here. We're going to break that up between the AR-15 and the AK, because I had to add the AK specifically because you were on, because I know you're a big AK guy and you know way more about it. But in regards like the AR-15 or the AR platform, from this crunch, is there anything we learned about the rifle other than that everybody wanted one? I mean,
well, it just solidified that it is the most popular rifle in American history. It surpassed many popular battle arms, such as the Garand, which General Patton called the greatest instrument for battle ever devised. I totally murdered that quote, but that's kind of what it was up against. It's like Legos for adults. Have you guys heard that cliche? Probably too many times. So it proved that it's interchangeable. I mean, if you want something that most modern law enforcement or military in your area is going to have surplus amounts of ammo for, if something were to happen, it's there. You have that availability. If you learn enough that you pick up something in a 223 Wild chamber or just a standard 5.56 NATO, you're going to be able to shoot anything. 223 Remington, 5.56. You don't have to worry about that. Am I overpressuring my gun? And I think it got people interested in guns maybe that weren't before. I'm not a gamer, so I can't claim to be, and I will probably sound like an idiot if I start talking about it. But games like Call of Duty and or even the Tom Clancy stuff, Rainbow Six for PC gamers. I remember when that came out way back in the day, and people start going. You start seeing these things operate, so it popularizes a little bit. And for people to say, well, video games has popularized gun culture and it's made us unstable and dangerous. That's not true. I mean, the generations before us had the same. They had toy versions of the same guns that our boys fought in World War II and Vietnam and Korea with. They had toy versions of these you could buy over the counter of the store, and they didn't have an orange tip. I mean, those things got people interested in guns then, too. We just have different toys now. And I will say that with the AR-15, we learned that it was popular. We learned that it was interchangeable. We learned that it's a good way to get people into guns who weren't maybe before. But if you were smart, you invested all that money during panic time into AR components and not just rifle themselves. So I'm talking barrels, I'm talking lower receivers, stripped upper receivers, parts kits, quality parts kits. Muzzle devices, aren't we? We're muzzle device crazy right now too, aren't we? It's like a buddy of mine, Matt Hazard, with jerkingthetrigger.com. He says we're in the golden age of muzzle devices, and I think that's the perfect way to say that, because there's so many, and each one reduces recoil, calms muzzle flip, lowers flash signature. They all do this, we claim, but anyway, all these different parts, whether it's different stock sets, and if you were real smart, you built up your supply, your storehouses, so to speak, of components and build equipment, tools maybe too, hopefully, and not just the full guns themselves, because the guns that you own in hand have really declined in value.
Yeah.
The stores that are having a hard time moving surplus of guns that they have, we're seeing that they're just locked into trying to get at least what they have into them. If you're a private party person now, we've been screwed over in Colorado with this new universal background check. I think it's the dumbest name for it in the world, but where we can't meet somebody, even if we want to have them fill out a bill of sale, check their driver's license, you can't just do that anymore. So that changes the value of what we have, because we have the inconvenience of having a background check every time you want something that's already in your collection to be sold. So now that part about buying barrels, bulk carrier groups, all that stuff, that's my own personal would-be tip. If you ever saw this happen again, maybe don't just go buy whole rifles. If you know somebody who knows about guns, we got a lot of good guys that are selling a lot of good stuff, and right now components they're just primo with what's out there and the cost. Even Daniel Defense barrels and Bravo Company USA and Voodoo Innovations it's a Adams Arms subsidiary, kind of sister company. It's making great stuff. Bill Geisley's main company has a sister company. It's actually named for his wife, called ALG Defense, broken off of them, and they're making fantastic products that are just bargain. I mean, we're back to the point where there's so much stuff out there that you can walk out the door with a really quality AR, even if you wanted to get everything the same name, for $600, something like that. And not just something that's a name.
Well, and that kind of brings me to the next point. Let's say, I've kind of changed up the show notes here a little bit.
No, it's all right.
If you were an AR manufacturer right now, and you're kind of looking where you're at, what are you going to do right now to, let's say you got a surplus in stock, and obviously it's not selling as crazy as it was. If you're an AR manufacturer right now, and yeah, we're saying where you only sell ARs because that's a good way to do business. What are you gonna do to change things up or mix things up to increase sales with the surplus of the market that's going on right now for AR manufacturers?
Well, I'm going to rely heavily on word of mouth. I'm going to cut down on ridiculous marketing cost, advertising in gun rags and low volume websites for gun magazines that aren't resulting in click-throughs. Okay, now I'm a blogger, I'm a YouTuber. I call myself a gun blogger more than a YouTuber, but it is what it is. And I believe in the power of social media, the power of influence, people who have an established audience, and the power of word of mouth. Word of mouth is a beautiful thing. So I'm going to cut down on an unnecessary cost, and I'm going to do everything in my power to put the best rifle together I can for under $500. And I'm not talking about a polymer gun. We're going to sell a 70-75 aluminum forged package for between $400 and $500. That sounds ridiculous. That sounds crazy. They will fly off the shelves, even though people already have too many ARs at this point, or because you're going to make it easier for somebody who doesn't own one to get into one, because you don't have somebody who paid $2,000 for their $600 AR last year trying to sell theirs to somebody else for what they have in it. So I'm going to go that route. I'm going to go that route, or just real quick, not to cut you off, but I'm going to do that, or I'm going to go like upper echelon premium quality. Now that's a pretty select group. We've seen companies like Colt, which can still command a pretty high price for their standard guns. LWRCI with their piston guns. Our mutual friend Adam Peeney, who's now with American Defense Manufacturing in Wisconsin, so long with LWRCI, and they can command a price, a 4-digit price that's higher than most 4-digit prices for even a non-NFA gun.
Yeah.
So I'm either going to go that super budget route, cut out unnecessary stuff. I'm not talking about cutting down on quality employees. I'm talking about cutting down on fluff. And then, or I'm just gonna build the most solid, and I'm gonna have accuracy tests to prove it with stock ammo. And so anyway, that's what I'm thinking. So turn that back over to you. I just
Well,
talked
no,
too much.
I was just gonna say if right now, and I'm not really in the market to buy now, but if I walked into a store, a regular store, and I saw an AR for under $500, I'd buy one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just walk in, I hands down would buy one. And then, yeah, I would agree on the high-end stuff, do something crazy where, like, this barrel has, like, dinosaur blood in it or something, something ultra high-end,
Some Charlie Sheen quote or something, yeah.
We collected Michael Moore's tears and forged them into the barrel.
Yeah, or what, what can we add? What can we add to the package in terms of value? A lot of times we'll see this rifle comes with, fill in the blank. And it's a cable lock. It's a cable gun lock with a trashy little key that comes with it. Maybe a soft case that was probably not made in the USA. Okay? And what else? A little bottle of lube for your bolt carrier group with no directions on how to lube your BCG, which is that's a whole other topic. But say we can do this, say we can build this gun for this cheap, which is just, we're astronomically crazy talk here, and every component that's with it is 100% made in the United States. And you can claim that unapologetically, that not only are you delivering a product that is fair in people's minds, and now I'm also, by the way, let me just add this as a footnote, I'm also of the mind that we should be prepared to pay for quality. But I'm talking about established gun community people, okay? People who know what they're buying, who know what they're looking for. Let's not be ashamed to fork over a little bit of dough, or save up for and fork over a little bit of dough for the right stuff. Well, we're talking about the most solid first AR you can get, or even second AR you can get. Then let's do it, and let's not roll it out with standard heat shield handguards. Let's pick up a B5 Systems key mod and throw it on there, or they're cheap. We're talking like $30 for some mega rad key mod handguards that don't weigh anything, or even Magpul Mo stuff is still super legit in my mind.
Yeah.
I
B5,
think it looks great. The new B5
I have
key mod, and they're getting ready to come out. I don't think they released it yet, but they're getting ready to come out with a mid-length for that too. Which is immediately, as soon as that comes out, it's going on my AR-10, because you can use it cross-platform with that. So yeah,
we talked about the exact same one. That's gonna be hot when it comes out.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome. Can't wait.
No, I have it, and it is more ergonomic than the MOE stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think it's more ergonomic, and it goes perfect with my grip stop.
Well, you're talking a slimmer grip. Right, you're talking a slimmer grip. You're talking more options in terms of that 360-degree accessory option for the key mod. Whereas I have a mid-length hanging right here behind me for the Mo. You've got 3. You've got 1 on each side, and then the bottom one. And frankly, if you're running something like a grip stop, okay, and I'm not thumb overboard, by the way. I'm going to be pointing my thumb towards the target, so it's going to be parallel to the barrel. That's me. That doesn't have to be everybody. There's guys that are a lot better shooters than I am that do not do it that way, but that's me because it's what's comfortable, and I have abnormally long arms for the short length of an AR style rifle. But yeah, dude, I think they've. Plus, I think B5 is a great company. I think that they're great people. They're a great company, and they continue to make a great product.
I was waiting for that to fall behind you.
Yeah, actually, I got it perfectly balanced.
Well, and I missed out, and I shouldn't forget just to give some regular long guns some love. Well, we're not going to talk about love of them, but I mean Remington 700, dude. That is, that's pretty much the baseline. It's Remington 700 action. Isn't that the baseline? And now they have these issues. Is that something that is going to be just kind of related to them, or Is there something we should watch out for in your standard, bolt action long rifle gun? What do you think?
I'm a little partial because I grew up on the Winchester Model 70. That was actually which is it was a pre-1964 model, which meant that it had a different extractor than the post-1964 ones. Very similar to a Remington 700. I just thought it was cool that Vietnam snipers used Winchester Model 70s. However, the modern M24, I think it's M24 bolt sniper rifle that would be commonplace in the military today, would be a Remington 700 action. And there are still guys, even with newly produced ones that are Freedom Group owned 700s that are building killer rifles off of that base platform. But if I'm going out and buying one, I'm either going to talk to the company themselves and know about exactly what I'm getting. I mean, I'm going to be obnoxious and frustrate the heck out of them by how much I want to know, or I'm going to look for one that's the end of the 20th century manufacture date that's in perfect condition, because I know that's going to be solid without question before FG came in and worked their way into the picture. So it's still, I mean, you can't argue with success, and there's a reason that it's still out there. Have you seen the Remington ad that says 5 million guns sold, still a larger army than China or something like that?
No, I haven't.
It's a great. You have to give them credit for that ad, because that was well thought. And Remington, kudos for selling 5 million guns to that name. That's pretty rad too.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to give you a couple minutes here because I don't know anything. So AKs, for me, I have a Sega, and that's a whole nother story that I will save for several YouTube videos. But for me, looking outside in, it seems like to me the AK platform or system, whichever you want to call it, I don't want to get hate from platforms or systems, but from the outside of not in the know AK guy to looking in, it seems like to me it's growing big time, but it's also not just like your typical standard, Wasser 10s. There's a lot of high-end AKs coming out. I mean, we're not talking $400 or $500. We're talking $1,500 and up. And so that's, for me, kind of on the outside, it seems like, hey, there's a lot of kind of growth and people looking into the popularity of AKs, and I think they're moving past this junk rifle or just a an everyday kind of rifle to a higher end type of thing. But that's me on the outside looking in. Give us a couple minutes here. Tell us where's the AK market at? Where are they at? What's going on with AKs?
Well, it's never just as far as well, we can set aside the super high end ones for a minute, but just as far as the beginner AKs or average Joe AKs, so to speak, have come along. I bought my first AK in 2006. I didn't really get into AKs hardcore till about 3 years ago. In fact, I think almost approximately 3 years ago. And that was because I think I was a little bit hipster about it at the time. I was like, look, everybody's doing ARs. I've done my fair share of ARs. I want to get into the AK side of things. So I started reading. I started spending some time reading, picking up like where I could find paperback manuals and stuff, manual of arms that were translated into English, Bulgarian stuff, and Romanian stuff. So the translations were really bad. And I met a guy on a forum who has gained a little bit of internet notoriety. His name's Owen, and his company in New Hampshire is called Snakehound Machine, and he's grown leaps and bounds, had growing pains. He's done his own creative stuff, kind of niche in that AK area. So he helped guide me a little bit through it in the things that he had learned. But they're in terms of if you were looking to start off, there's value based, and there's there can be garbage, but it's harder to find garbage than it was even 3 or 4 years ago. There's even the companies Atlantic Arms, Century International Arms, who's been an importer and kit builder for a long time. Even just a few years ago, if you were looking for a CIA gun, a Century International Arms gun, it wouldn't be uncommon to find one that had a real common problem would be for the front sight post to look about like this, and then the rear sight would be right here. And so you're like, okay, how exactly do I hold this? How do I fire it? And those were things that could be solved with a little bit of elbow grease. But you didn't want to have to do that when you first got one, because it was a gun. It is a gun, if you've never handled one before, that takes kind of a little bit of want to fall in love with. I think once you start shooting them, that's when the love affair can start. If you've got a standard wooden handguard on that forend, though, and you go out and you blow through a magazine of 30 rounds, and it's not even that hot of a day, you put another mag in, and you don't have a glove on, you realize, I'm holding the hottest part of this gun in my hand. Because, real quick, AKs, if you're just mind blown out of the water, have no idea, it's a piston gun, which means all the heat coming from gas is happening on the front end of the gun. On an AR-15, it's a direct impingement, gas impinged gun, so it actually squirts gas through the tube, comes into the upper receiver, and goes into your bolt carrier group. That's what cycles the gun with the buffer spring behind it. So it's the force of the gas pushing it back, and the buffer spring pulling it back forward. So that bolt carrier group, that area gets hot. Now, the gas block area on an AR-DI gun can get hot too, but when you have a piston gun, all that gas is exiting, the excess gas and all that's happening up front, and that sucker, that thing just gets hot so fast. And so you can rip through a lot of rounds. And the other thing is, if you're brand new to AKs, maybe the first one you grab is a 7.62 x 39, the most common in the first round shot out of an AR or AK pattern rifle. It's heavy. You're talking 123, 126 grain bullet compared to a 55 or a 62 grain bullet from an AR-15. And that's a big difference in kick. So a lot of people like to call it a man-sized round. I shoot an AK because with the standard AK, I get a 30 cal round. Well, that's good for you, but for those of you who don't necessarily care about that, there are also AKs that are made with a round called the 5.45 x 39. So it's a 30 cal, it's a 7.62 brought down to almost a 22 caliber. Pretty similar to a 223. In fact, I have some 223 dummy rounds in this just for holster magazine carrier making purposes. But it doesn't look a whole lot different from an AR mag in terms of size. A little bit longer, and the way that it engages with the lower receiver is different. But that is a flat shooting round naturally. And while those spam cans, the metal tins of the 5.45 that we could just get in, the corrosive stuff, that has since been banned because we are in the business of banning things in this country. But it is flat shooting naturally. And so it's harder to find whether you're looking online or in a store. Beware of private party sellers of AKs, because somebody will get one and it was crap because they weren't paying attention. They'll pawn it off on somebody else who doesn't know, wants to get into AKs, and now they have a crappy AK on their hands that needs work to run. And that's not necessarily that AK's fault. That's the person who assembled that kit's fault, okay? Because that came in as a kit and has some U.S.-made parts in it mixed with the kit to make it a legal 922R compliant gun. If you don't know what that means, just Google ATF 922R, and you'll find what that means. We definitely don't have time to delve into that. But then on the high-end ones, like you were talking about, these guns aren't as inaccurate as people say they are. I have a Romanian Wasser 10-63 that the first time I took it to the range and shot it with iron sights at 100 yards with crappy steel case 7.62 ammo, I shot a 2-inch group from a bench, but I shot a 2-inch group. Now that's an AK. That's acceptable field accuracy for any AR-15, M16, M4 carbine style rifle from military standards, and it has since, with an optic, shot more accurate with a better muzzle device and some better furniture. So we have moved into a place where, in terms of the age of AKs, it's easier to get a good one right off the bat. And if you want to go high-end like you can with ARs, there are companies like Krebs Custom who make just crazy awesome AKs, and they've made the safety selector switch more friendly, and they've gotten into key mods, and now actually the SBR that I've ordered from Rifle Dynamics in Las Vegas, Jim Fuller's company, it actually has a Krebs key mod handguard on the front of that AK. So it's easy to get them good early on, easier, and if you like to go expensive, if you're the type of person that likes to be able to afford guns and have guns that other people can't, it's easier to do that now too.
Well, I would say it's definitely upward mobility on the AK market, but we need to move on to handguns here, and obviously, finally, everybody's catching up on Striker Fire now. We have HK coming out with their Striker Fire, SIG finally coming out with their Striker Fire. Obviously, Glocks have been there for a while. You know, MPs. You know, when you look at the handgun market, what do you see in the handgun market right now?
Well, fortunately, you know, compared to we're talking about the gun bubble in 2013, there's still people buying what they would perceive to be fighting pistols or concealed carry pistols. They're less expensive to feed more often than rifles are, and they're, for whatever reason, they're still a little bit more politically correct than an assault rifle.
Air quotes there, by the way.
I don't think it used to be that way. Well, I mean, even if I think back to as a kid growing up, handguns were worse than rifles were.
Yeah.
Maybe that was just my family. I don't know, but so I think short guns have that going for them right now. Handguns, and they're less to buy up front. You know, if I go to the right shop, I could maybe still find a Gen 3 Glock 19 for $450. You know, under 500 for sure, and probably a newer Gen 4 Glock 19 for $519, $560. You know, if I wanted to put night sights on it a little bit more, but you can't do that as much with rifles. And you know, people think, well, I can conceal this, or I'm going to get my concealed carry, or as people like to say, it drives me crazy, conceal and carry. We're all different, so that's fine. I just don't say it that way. But you know, Striker Fire, good for HK, glad for you guys. I don't really care. With a Glock you have, and I'll be an advocate, and if I come across as a fanboy, that's fine. With a Glock you have a pistol that has 33 parts total. 33 total parts. I want to say 1911 has 50-something. 57, yeah. 54, something like that, compared to a Striker Fire pistol, specifically the Glock. 33 parts, I think that's phenomenal. Yeah, there you've got your little 42. I've got my Glock 22 RTF2. This is my favorite full-size pistol that I own. It's a 40 cal, and so easy to have spare parts on hand to fix. Easy to fix. You don't have to be a Glock armor to be able to do that. So easy to fix. There are accessories galore everywhere. I mean, just off the charts for Glocks. And as a result of all those things, the interchangeability, everything, they're ridiculously affordable. And so that's one of the big reasons that I am an advocate for Glock pistols. I
want a Zev Fulcrum.
Yeah, and I've never met or spoken to Al Zev personally, but he seems to be a pretty cool dude, and even if he's not, he makes some really cool stuff, so I'm willing to put up with it. Yeah, extremely cool stuff. You know, we've seen a lot of other type triggers like that. Salient Arms International out of San Diego is making their own Glock trigger now. It's similar in price to the Zev. There's always been like the ghost trigger bars and things that you can do to reduce the pull a little bit to try to if most Glocks come stock at 5.5 or 6 pounds, you can drop that a little bit. You know, the Haley Strategic had the skimmer trigger that they had out. That seems to have kind of lost some steam, but the Zev trigger is, and I've tried one, shot one with it, and then with that I go back to my stock Glocks, which is how I carry them. But then I'm like, oh, that Zev trigger would be pretty sweet. I just need to man up and set aside the $200 to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect segue into our next to last segment here is accessories. We kind of hit on before. Yeah, everybody is coming out with a muzzle device now that does everything.
Mm-hmm.
But along with muzzle and kind of going off the Glock thing is triggers, man. You got, Geisley coming out with, all their triggers, and of course CMC with their flat trigger that I love to death, that I want really bad. What is the triggers the newest hottest item? Is muzzle devices still there? When you're oh, you have it.
Yep. It is. It's 3.5.
It's a beautiful trigger. Jesse at 4C Tactical has that, and I shot it, man. Oh, just
good.
So, good. I mean, we talked about before. It's a Legos for guns and for guys. What's the hottest item right now? Is it triggers? Is it muzzle devices? Or is it just people just wanting to get the, every ounce out of the rifles they can?
Yeah. Ambidextrous stuff seems to be huge. Ambidextrous safety selectors especially. That's a budget change you can make, whether it's a, like for instance, a Magpul bad lever, for instance, here, allows me to access the bolt catch with my trigger finger, so it speeds that up a little bit. Maybe it's here's a Geisley Super Dynamic 3-gun on this one. Grips are $20-$30. This is an Umbrella Corp on this pistol that I just showed you with the CMC trigger. This is an ergo grip. In my mind, that is one of the most overlooked AR-15 grips that are available. Here's a Magpul K2. Really like this one. Great tactile. But so the ambidextrous stuff, the anti-rotation trigger pins. That's a $20 or $30 mod. Really easy to do. This is the new Black Rain drop-in trigger group that's on this rifle also. Insane. Had a dummy round in there. Check out. I just got to show off this reset real quick. Okay, there's the pull.
Wow, that was like 1/16 of an inch or something.
Yeah, or less. So it's but a lot of flip up sights that are coming out more affordable. That one I just showed you had some Daniel Defense fixed on it, and you're looking at $120 for the pair, and for anything that says DD on it to be that value base. The Magpul has done so much for us with polymer stuff. These are the M-Bus sights and AFG forward grip. So a lot of easy mods. The billet stuff is huge. So the fully CNC machine, handguards, key mod, we're starting to see gain a lot of steam. In terms of accessories, the drop-in triggers, I say yes and no, because it's an easy mod. So we're seeing more notable people than ever shoot aftermarket triggers, not just do the little bit of polishing of the contact points on their mil-spec triggers, but people who matter shooting CMC triggers, shooting Geisley triggers. Geisley has a massive military contract, just unbelievable. We have one of their new ALG Defense combat triggers in my wife's rifle, and she likes it. It's about a 6-pounder, but there's very little creep, and it's crisp, and she feels safer with that than like my Super Dynamic 3-gun trigger in here is a this little flat Geisley one. You might even be able to see the G. This is a 2-pound 10-ounce trigger, so it's and when I weighted it after I put it in, I thought, this might be a little bit dangerous. That's okay. So yeah, triggers are huge. We're still with I feel like there's a lot of cheap people and a lot of people who love to spend a ton of money. So muzzle devices, like you said, you can get under $100. You don't have to pay $200 for a battle comp. And I think a lot of tests have recently proven that the battle comps actually drive the muzzle down a little bit. And I have
Yeah.
nothing bad to say about that company. I'm not trying to say that, but in terms of popularity, you don't necessarily have to spend $140 on a Lantac Dragon either to be able to find a good muzzle device. So there's so many good peripherals that are out right now. But probably, I think you might be right, more triggers than ever. But I think we're going to be seeing some patent wars with the drop-in stuff
Yeah.
coming up. And I know, and I won't even begin to speak about that like I know, or even reveal the secrets of some industry folks that I trust, because there are going to be probably some expensive lawsuits, maybe some products drop out of popularity. You don't see the Timney fully contained drop-ins for ARs, if at all, anymore. So that, but yeah, more easy to get and easy to modify trigger stuff in ARs than we've seen in a long time.
Okay. Well, let's move on to our last segment here, and take a couple minutes. What do you see for the rest of 2014 and 2015 in the firearms industry? Do you expect any big innovations in regards to firearms? Obviously, optics, there probably can be improvements there, and they're doing stuff there a lot. But where do you see the industry and manufacturers of firearms and accessories in 2014, 2015?
Sure, I think that you're going to continue to see popularity with people who already have these guns now. Maybe an uptick in some accessories, because they're looking to get a little bit custom with things. I think we will continue to see some positive scaling of the 300 Blackout cartridge. I don't know that it's necessarily deserved that much, but the subsonic thing, shooting and suppress, is pretty cool. You could take a handgun suppressor, 9mm 45 auto, and have a thread adapter or threads that match, put it on a 300 Blackout, and safely shoot subsonic ammo through it, whisper quiet. Which, with an auto-loading gun, who doesn't want to do that? I mean, that's super cool. So I think the Blackout's going to continue to get big. I'm interested to see Magpul release their M-Lock technology, which is kind of looking to maybe challenge Keymod a little bit, but it's come out so late. I feel like Keymod has gained a lot more traction. It's taken some work because everybody's got Picatinny. Picatinny's so easy.
Yeah.
Everything's compatible with it. Even if you're out of spec, things still seem to fit. So it took a while for Keymod to get there, but maybe as a result of more of those type of quick detach, highly customizable accessories like Keymod, now Magpul's M-Lock, perhaps that will help those type of things gain some traction. I think we're either going to see more ammo or cheaper ammo, maybe both. I think we're going to we've had a break from national legislation towards some gun control type stuff. I think we'll probably see more of that. And one thing I would love to see people do is get training with all those guns they bought last year. I think a lot of us still have that mentality that if we spend all of our fun money, or even the fun money that we don't have, on the guns, then we're good to go. And then maybe go to the range, set up a bench, pop off a few magazines. Okay, I know how to use my gun. I'm satisfied. Listen, knowing how to function your gun and knowing how to run your gun effectively are two different things.
Absolutely.
And I would love to see, and we've had, our industry has seen just a dramatic rise in available trainers and quality trainers. A lot of guys coming home from war, many with experience. A lot of people, we just get off on knowing a guy has military experience. That automatically means that he's legit. Doesn't necessarily mean that. We have a lot of good civilian trainers too. But find what fits for you. Are you looking to defend your home? Are you looking to become a mercenary? I mean, that's I say that tongue in cheek, but how fast can you draw and fire effectively your concealed carry firearm? Where do you draw it from? Have you thought through all that, or did you go out and pick up your Glock 19 during the panic and grab an Uncle Mike's soft felt holster and decide to shove that in your waistband anytime you feel unsafe and call yourself good because you know how to run the slide on your pistol and are familiar with using your trigger finger as a safety because you've seen all of us internet peoples hammer people for unsafely posing for their guns like this, right? So I don't know if we'll see that. I would like to see that. I would really like to see people get serious about taking advantage of quality training opportunities. I'm putting Frank Proctor on my list for 2015. I'm going to try to make the money happen and make the event happen. I'll probably have to travel to him, but that's okay. He's somebody who has experience in the fighting world and the competition world. He basically teaches you to train your body to respond to the way that the gun operates and be most effective in that way. So that's kind of a wish list type thing for me. So yeah, those are some possible thoughts on the future of the rest of this year, maybe.
Last question here, and then we'll move on. But do you see any more consolidation of firearm manufacturers, and or some closing?
Yeah, there have been so many upstarts as a result of the boom. People either going, well, that's where the money is too. Hey, I built my own AR-15 in my garage before. I could do that. They don't have the buying power. Can't get the parts. And maybe they just end up shutting down. I think we'll see that on a lot of small ones. That'll just be a natural thing. There have been a few that I've seen just in the past few months on social media that popped up, took a lot of people's money, and then jetted, which is not cool.
No.
So just people try to keep your eyes open on that and do some research and see if a company has feedback, and especially if they're charging a lot for their guns. You don't want to just throw your money away. So I think we'll definitely see some close, and I think consolidation is always inevitable. I am not an economist. I understand some basic principles, but as long as there's money to be made and people are trying to take care of their families and be set up, if somebody with deeper pockets comes along and feels like, and they feel like this person can offer them some security, then I think for sure we'll see it. I hope it happens under circumstances that don't reduce the quality of the firearms that are being put out. It probably will still happen. I think that's impossible to avoid, but it would be interesting to see who, is Freedom Group going to try to buy somebody else up this next year? I thought AAC would be the last to give into something like that. And I can't pass judgment because I wasn't there and I don't know Brent or any of those folks personally, but it is what it is. So it could be a total surprise, huge surprise.
John is just an awesome dude there. Just awesome guy.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, we have a lot of major douchebags in our industry, but every industry does. And just like that, we have a lot of fantastic people in too. So, I want to see people succeed and hate to see people fail, but it happens.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's move on to a couple of our sponsors for the show. Our first sponsor is LA Police Gear, lapolicegear.com. If you guys aren't familiar with them, check them out. They have a 365-day return policy and also free shipping on all orders over $89. If you guys aren't familiar with Fail Zero, for those watching on YouTube, we can see it right here in my hand. They sell it and actually at a discounted price compared to if you go to failzero.com. I just now broke 12 or 1,300 rounds on this bolt, and if you check out the YouTube video on this, you'll see it's shiny. It is their exo coating, which is kind of like a nickel boron coating. Fantastic bolt. There's a link in the show notes to an item from LA Police Gear. I highly recommend the Fail Zero AR-15 bolt carrier group. They also make a M16 one, but I linked in the show notes at LA Police Gear. They sell it at a discounted price. Check it out. It's a great bolt. I highly recommend it. Also, our other sponsor is Duluth Trading. which you can check them out by going to gunguyradio.com/Duluth. And I'll tell you what, for those that are maybe, I actually use these socks. They're linked in the show note. They're the men's lightweight merino compression socks. I actually just picked up a couple more for headed out to Idaho for vacation this summer, and they are fantastic socks if you walk a lot or if you stand on your feet a lot. Check them out in the show notes or search from gunguyradio.com/Duluth. The merino compression socks, they're absolutely fantastic socks, and they won't oversweat, and they're a high quality sock for hiking, working, whatever you're doing. Check them out, and also free shipping on $50 orders and up. So let's check out, guys, the Gun Guy Radio product spotlight. All right, guys, that was the Gun Guy Radio products spotlight. A couple notes. We have the Patreon coming up in July for the We Like Shooting. So check that out, welikeshootingpodcast.com. Also, guys, we're giving away an AR-15 currently right now on the Firearms Radio Network on the AR-15 podcast. So go check that out. So, Ebbs, man, thank you for coming on today. Absolutely appreciate it. Come on with a lot of insight, and I think you explained everything really, really well and kind of, updated us pretty good on what we went through and where we're going. So thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Glad to be a part. Appreciate the invite, and look forward to seeing you guys again.
Yeah. So, all right. If you guys haven't checked out Ebbs' House of Guns, tell them where we can find you at online, man.
Well, social media, I'm everywhere as House of Guns, and that's Haus of Guns. Website, same name, houseofguns.com. YouTube, it's youtube.com/houseofguns. It's so straightforward, no tricks, just House of Guns everywhere, easy to find. And we're actually getting ready to roll out a new logo, and we'll have some pretty cool stuff come along with that too.
All right. And we need to also thank another sponsor, Ryan Cross, Hunter of Design, hunterofdesign.com. He actually has done all of our logos for Practically Tactical On Target podcasts and shows. Awesome stuff. You can check out his website, hunterofdesign.com. Has a bunch of other portfolios on there making some awesome stuff. Feedback, guys, please share your thoughts by leaving a comment to the bottom of this YouTube video, or check out the show notes. Leave a comment on there. We'd greatly appreciate it. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes, so that way you never miss a show. When new shows are released, you automatically get them. Also, please leave us a review on there as well. Also, join the NRA, join the Second Amendment Foundation. I think Ebbs and I will agree that helps us out, helps everybody.
Yep, use your voice.
Yep, and then don't forget to shop at Brownells by using our affiliate link, gunguyradio.com/satisfaction. You can also contribute to the show by shopping at amazon.com by using any of the affiliates banners on the website. Don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Firearms Radio Network. For example, Practically Tactical or Practically Tactical on Target. New episodes released every Wednesday and Sunday. So, subscribe and listen for free at firearmsradio.tv/iTunes. Ebbs, thanks again, man. And everybody out there, thanks for listening. I hope I didn't screw it up guest hosting, and take care.